Welcome to another episode of USA RV Nomads Beyond the Pavement. This time we're in Sedona, Arizona on the Broken Arrow Trail. From the traffic circle at 179 at Arrow and Morgan Road, you want to turn east onto Morgan Road. You'll pass through the residential area. Please respect the signs, keep the noise down, drive slow. Otherwise, we could lose access to this wonderful trail. And now here you turn the left turn and go into the parking lot if you're a hiker or a bicyclist. But if you're an off-roader like us, you're going to proceed straight. And this is where you enter the Broken Arrow Trail. Now, most of these trails have what we call a check barrier. If you slam into this and stop, or you scrape really badly going over it, you probably should not proceed past this point. The trail doesn't look that bad, but there's some areas where you're going to have a high clearance vehicle. And there are those who will try to come back here with vehicles not suitable for the trail and often find themselves in trouble. There's always those who want to get there faster than you, so take advantage of the many turnoffs along here, or pull-offs, so you can let vehicles pass going in either direction. It's better, let these guys go ahead. We're not in a hurry. We're here to enjoy ourselves. The first time we visited this trail was more than a year ago when our Jeep was still stock and new to us. This was one of our first really true, let's get it engaged in some 4-low action and do some rock climbing. And you're going to see where we experienced that first opportunity to do that. And it's right here. If you got past the barrier, you're lucky. You may not be able to climb this if you have the wrong kind of vehicle. This spot here is a great spot to stop and air down your tires, disconnect your sway bar if you have to do it manually, and just take a break for a few minutes and look around. It's a beautiful location, and it's hard to believe that you're literally just minutes outside of downtown Sedona. And we're going to pull up here, get situated. Sherry's going to walk Maggie around, give her some exercise so we can get on with the fun. The park today is not too busy, which is a good thing. We've been here when it's basically been pretty much bumper to bumper. Not only tourists, fellow off-road enthusiasts, but just seemed like hundreds of these pink Jeeps. We're going to show you about 98% of the trail. There were just some sections that we either forgot to record or we were just too wrapped up in what we were doing, having fun. But again, there's not that many people here today, so that makes it a lot more enjoyable for us. Again, this trail can get pretty congested at times. And there are trail markers. You got to pay attention. They kind of blend in with the surroundings. And in being Arizona, these signs don't last very long. They fade and become more difficult to read. One thing I can't stress enough is respect the trails and respect those who live along the trails. Now this area here, there's not people living back in this section. You did have to pass through a residential area. But in a lot of these trails in this part of Arizona, there are people who live alongside. And they post speed limit signs to help keep the dust down. And this is becoming an issue with a lot of trails in Arizona. People are not respective of the trails. They drive way fast, they kick up lots of dust, and that dust settles on the plants. And when the plants are covered with dust, they can't breathe, and then they die. And this is causing a lot of residents in the area to request that some of these trails be closed. This is one of those trails that it's pretty mundane, but the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to be out here when the winds are really gusty, and you don't want to be out here when it is raining or has been raining or snowing, because this gets very muddy and it's just a real nightmare to drive on. There's nothing worse than on a day when it's nice like today, but if the wind was howling, you step out, you'd be pelted with sand. We actually came to visit the trail once, got into not even this far back, and decided we're turning around and leaving, because as soon as you put your foot outside the door, you were getting sandblasted. It's just not enjoyable. There are lots of places to pull off, and you should always be keen where they are. Like in this situation, rules of the trail: if you're a single, you back up. There are several side-by-sides coming down the trail. Me being a single, we had to back up, and we just backed up into that pull-off area and let these guys pass. Now, they're also giving us the proper hand signals to say, hey, there's this many behind me, and that's something you need to know about too. If you're traveling in a group, or if you're even traveling solo, to know how many people are coming in line. Those who care for the trail have gone and put in stones like you see on the right, or they'll lay logs, because these are barriers they put in place to keep those who seem to think that because they have a off-road vehicle that they can go anywhere they damn well please. Well, no. If you abuse the trails, you'll lose access to the trails, and that's something we don't want. You want to make sure you're driving defensively at all time, because just because you may think you have the right of way doesn't mean you're going to get the right of way. Now, there's a lot of good drivers that work for the people who operate these pink Jeeps, but there on occasion are some who, hey, they don't care. It's a job. But just be prepared, give them a space. But the one nice thing about them is if you follow them, you'll get to the different stops along the trail because they know where they're going. And if it's your first time, you may not. So love them or hate them, they're part of the trail too. And if you are following them, give them plenty of room because they're doing the tourist thing. They're entertaining the tourists that are riding in the back. And they may suddenly just stop to say, hey, see this over here or see that over there, and share a story about what's there to be seen. As I mentioned before, this trail seems rather mundane, and yes, pretty much most of it is. There are some spots, however, that are challenging, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But just take your time. The biggest concern you're going to have is not the terrain, it is the traffic you're sharing the trail with. Fortunately, it's not too dusty today. There's a little dust in the air, but it's not bad. We've seen it a lot worse. As I said, most of the trail is mundane, but there are sections, and this arrow here is giving us the indication that if we go that way, we're going to find some more challenging places. But for now, we're going to keep going towards the end of the trail, the far end of the trail, which is the Chicken Point Outlook, and we're getting pretty close. Yeah, now we're starting to do a little more of the climbing over the rock ledges and weaving our way through, which usually is a good indication that you're coming to something to see, or in this case, as I said, you give the pink Jeeps a little room. They're talking about some kind of attraction that's across the canyon there. Not being able to hear what they're saying, we really didn't know what it was, but we're more focused on getting to the end of the trail. And there's somebody who had to yield to the uphill traffic, and we're buzzing right along, and we're climbing an elevation. This is a little bit steeper than the terrain we've passed so far, and you can kind of see the rock formation, so we've got to be getting pretty close, I would think, which we are. And here we go. We are now arriving at Chicken Point, and you can tell you are because we're climbing these like rock steps to get up to one of the best views you can find in this area, especially on this trail. Now, on a busy day, this might be a kind of a bumper-to-bumper parking area, but right now there's only the 3 pink Jeeps and ourselves and lots of hikers and a few bicyclists. The thing to do is to make sure you park someplace that you can easily get turned around and out of. And we're going to pull up here because there's really nobody here. Pick a spot, park, and then be able to take some pictures, including pictures of our Jeep in such a beautiful surrounding. One thing to notice, if you look there on the cliffs, there's a faint white line, and up there are some bicyclists. These guys are walking, but they were riding their bikes along that narrow, highly off-camber trail. Something I don't think I'd do. Well, we spent our time here, we hung out, we took some pictures, we did a little exploring, a little people watching. Now it's time to head back the way we came until we get to that fork in the road. The thing about these trails, when you do it out and back like this, the venue is one way when you're going one direction and is completely different going in the opposite direction. That's one of the great things about Arizona, is having the opportunity to ride trails like this and see the sights that you can see. You know it's a climb when the bicyclists have to stop and push their bikes up the hill. Again, you gotta watch out for these guys. And like this guy here, he's feeling it. He's feeling the elevation change. Now we're turning on to that other stretch of the trail that's going to present a little more challenge than what we've been on thus far. And I think you can start to see what we're talking about. We're going to start climbing up some rock faces here. Now again, these can be slippery even if they're dry. When they got a little sand on them, that's just as slippery sometimes as if it had been raining. And this little traffic circle, so to speak, which you can go all the way around at all 360 degrees, this is, I believe, is what's called Mushroom Rock, because it kind of looks like a mushroom. Now, again, not having a pink Jeep to lead the way, if you don't know where you're going, you can take a wrong turn, kind of like what we did right here. This is probably someplace that people would come and park to hike around and picnic and just get out of the way of everybody else. We have to kind of do a quick turn around and backtrack a little bit. Do yourself a favor and pause every now and then just to stop and absorb the scenery. It's fantastic. And as you can see ahead, we're going to climb up this little lip and up on top of this rock face, and we'll park here and hang out with some folks and enjoy the view and enjoy sharing stories about our off-roading. And watch the others as they come by. It's interesting. You'll see older Jeeps, new Jeeps. Matter of fact, we ran across a young couple who had a brand new Gladiator that they hadn't even made their first payment on, who were out riding the trail. And unfortunately, they were smart enough to ask for some help because they really didn't know what they were doing yet. One of the guys we were parked next to decided to take his JKU and give her a whirl going downhill. And going downhill wasn't too bad. It makes a lot of squeaking on the brakes, but he negotiated this rather steep ledge here that we passed coming up. Now, coming up the hill was a little different result. He picked the wrong line. I think his tires could have been aired down quite a bit more. And as you can see, he's not getting anywhere quick. He had to take a couple, 3 stabs to get up the hill. And for those of you who are considering putting a rooftop tent, when they talk about having all that weight up high, the rooftop tent in this case, because he's not carrying a lot of anything, I think, inside the Jeep, the way the weight and balance is, it's putting all the weight back over the rear wheels, and that's one of the reasons his front wheels are not getting the traction you would expect them to get. So he loses ground quite rapidly. But now he adjusts his line a little bit, and he's going to give her a little bump, and he's going to come right on up, getting past that one spot on the ledge. And the folks picnicking there with the red Jeep, they had a front row seat. Now we had ventured down to the obstacle on the trail called the Devil's Staircase. Now a lot of people went down it, but we decided not to. I just didn't feel comfortable taking it, even though there was a stock Jeep that went down. Of course, he banged and clanged all the way down the stairs. But we decided to work our way back and go out the way we came in. Hey, maybe on another day we'll feel more comfortable of taking it. There's no dishonor in not taking an obstacle. It's your Jeep, it's your insurance, and you know, if you're making payments on something, it's hard to explain to your insurance company and your bank why it's broken. And there's Mushroom Rock again. Like I said, it looks like a traffic circle, and it probably is used one when there's lots of traffic coming up here, but we're going to go around it backwards just because there's nobody else around, and just to give a nice panorama of the view we're seeing. Man, that's just great. The best time to visit these trails is during the week, not during the weekends. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that is when everybody comes up from the big cities to come up here and play. Do yourselves a favor, if you're going to come visit Sedona and do some trail riding, do it Monday through Thursday. You'll find it like this, a much more enjoyable experience. Fewer vehicles on the road, which just makes the trip more enjoyable. Here we're going to make a turn to the right, and this takes us down to where you can access the formation known as Submarine Rock. Like all of these spots, there's usually an obstacle associated with it. In this case, there's this steep, deeply rutted from all the years of four-wheel drives climbing it. I don't have the video of this trip going up the rock. I'll link in one from before, but here is some cell phone that was shot when we came down. We did this the first time in a stock Jeep, and I'll put a link in the description of that video I shot going up and coming down in the days when our Jeep was still stock. Maggie's turned out to be quite the trail dog. She loves to go wheeling. As we head out where we aired down, we got in, we decided to stop, do a little flexing, and take some pictures of the Jeep, and just do this because we're going to be leaving the area soon, and this will be the last chance we get to do anything like this for quite some time. We hope you enjoyed watching USA RV Nomad's presentation of Beyond the Pavement. Be sure to subscribe and click like and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos coming soon.